Hi, this is Katie and my channel is View from the Middle. I wanted to cover a little something like one of my many rabbit holes that I tend to go down. So I wanted to try to make this as short and sweet as I possibly can and kind of get to the point of like where I'm going with all this and the different rabbit holes and why it's so important to be engaged and be involved. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the NLRB. If not, it's basically it's the National Labor Relations Board. It is an independent federal agency that protects the rights of private sector employees to join together with or without a union to improve wages and working conditions. Now, why is this important? So the U.S. Chamber of Commerce basically published, and on December 14th, 2022, the chair and the general counsel of the National Labor Relations Board recently penned a letter to Congress pleading for additional funding for the agency in the fiscal year of 2023, which Congress has not yet passed. The letter notes that its funding has remained at $274 million since 2014. So they're scrutinizing the request because they're basically saying that they're going off of numbers, right? What have they been doing to justify the funding? So if you think about it though, it's kind of crazy that basically in the course of the last 8 to 9 years, they've received no additional funding. Now this is something that is supposed to be protecting workers' rights, but they've received, whether it was a Democrat or a Republican or whatever the Congress was or anything at the time, no additional funding has gone to that. So, which I find very interesting. They go on to reference why they're scrutinizing giving this money. And they reference several different numbers and they break it down to different years and stuff. But I'm going to go with just an overview. So the number one thing that stood out to me is they're saying that they've steadily seen case numbers declining over the last 20 years. So in 2001, the NLRB processed 20,124 unfair labor practices. In 2022, they only processed 17,998. That is a drop of 36%. So they're saying that they're working less, they're less productive, hence why the numbers, there just isn't the volume for them to give them the money, right? Now, if you watch the news or you read about anything or you follow anything regarding labor, you will see that like you have Chipotle's, you have Starbucks, you have Amazon. These are huge employees, and these people are getting together and they're trying to fight for their rights. Well, in different articles that you read, you will hear about the fact that like they fired some of these people, and the companies are not necessarily held accountable because they can fire, and yes, they might have to hire you back and maybe give you lost wages, but that's not even always the case. And the NLRB, like from what I'm reading in different articles, it takes a lot to get your case seen and even reviewed, and a very, very long time for that to happen. Now, in my opinion, I think there's more and more of a need for it. It shows that 77% of Americans, even young Americans, are interested in unionizing. Now, whether you want to unionize or not, I think it is irrelevant. I think what that's basically saying is people aren't happy. Our wages have not kept up with inflation. Employers are taking more and more advantage. I've seen it since I've been working where they want you to do more and pay you the same. And, someone gets fired or laid off or quits and they don't backfill a position and they only put more on you, but your wages don't adjust for that. So they just cut a whole overhead of a person, whether it was $40,000 or $80,000 that they're saving, but you're not getting substantiated for any of that, but your workload has increased. So I think people are getting more and more like upset. But I just find that interesting that I feel like in where we're at in the times with people struggling, the middle class is shrinking, and they are not wanting to fund something that technically should be helping us support our rights in the workplace, whether it's union or non-union, it's irrelevant. So something that I thought was interesting because, it sounds like they're trying to be, frugal with their money, and Congress is, trying to make sure that they're allotting funding to the places that need it and are doing their jobs. Now, what I find interesting is I looked up basically Congress's like benefits, like what are their perks, right? Well, it shows that they haven't been receiving raises technically, but all of their incomes are at a minimum of $174,000 annually, which I was like, okay, I actually thought they'd make more than that. That's kind of an important like role. But if you look at it and you look at their calendars, there's like so many days where they're not even in session. They have days to work in their states, and basically all this time allotted for however they would like to manage that. Technically, it's looking like they average around 239 days out of Congress. Now, again, they get to work on their own, do whatever they want. But if you, I mean, could you imagine if you had that? Like your yard would be on point, your house would be clean. But so I did the math. So that leaves them with 126 days, working days. And they're not even always full working days. And sometimes, yeah, they might be fuller than that. So I broke it down. Well, how much is that per day? So they make $1,380. Well, it's closer to 81 for each working day that they have, which I'm like, dang, like I would take that money in a heartbeat. And it goes on to list other perks and stuff like that. They have a free gym, and the gym has all these bells and whistles and stuff. And even during one of our shutdowns, they kept the gym open, which cost, was an additional cost to taxpayers, making sure that they were able to attend their saunas and all these different perks that they have within this gym, which I find insulting. Like, you can have money for that, but not to give it to an organization that's here for the people. The other thing that $174,000 does not talk about is they also receive an allowance. And the allowance is basically anywhere from 1.2 million to 3.3 million. And this is for your staff allowance. This is for your travel and office expenses. I mean, it's like congressional research, or basically whatever they want to use it for. I mean, I don't know. I feel like they could give a little bit more money to the NLRB, just because I think that we're going to start to see a lot more cases. If we haven't already, maybe they're not processing that many cases because they don't have the staff. They're talking about doing furloughs if they don't get more money in the funding. So what started me kind of down that rabbit hole was I was trying to read this bill, and this bill is HR 842. So it's several pages long. It's all this small print. And if you look at this bill, it's a lot of fun. Do you remember that class that you took back in high school where, the Romeo and Juliet, and they're just like, okay, read this, and then so-and-so tell me like how you interpret that, right? Well, I wish I would have paid more attention to that, because I actually think that Romeo and Juliet is a lot easier to read than this bill. If you look at this bill, they literally go into detail about changing a word from further than before. Like and it's a section, and it's inserted, and it's this, that, and the other. And if you look at this bill, you will see almost the equal amount of numbers and section references. When they say something, you have to refer back to this. I mean, talk about a rabbit hole. It's like chasing your tail. I will be honest, I could read this whole thing, and I'm not the girl that's going to understand most of it. But what I do understand is, like, I don't even know how legit the PRO Act bill that I referenced yesterday is, and what it's actually doing for us, let alone the fact that it's probably not even going to pass, because if it does have something in here that could benefit us, it will not be a priority. I'm not trying to be negative or anything like that. I actually feel more empowered with the more information that I learn and looking into things, and I'm just like, give me more knowledge. I don't want to take things for granted. I want to see the things that are out there, the resources that are out there, and how we can use them to help us, like the middle class, the lower class. I mean, we've all been grinding, and I think that it's so important to not sit back and think like this is being taken care of, or we have this resource, when there's a chance that resource might not be as available as we think. So I appreciate your time. I hope that everybody has a great day. It's Tuesday, so keep grinding and take care, and let's keep growing and educating ourselves.